My sisters and brothers, I greet you all with the love and peace of the Lord. I invite you to meditate together with me on the holy word of God of 6th Ordinary Sunday, 14th February 2021. The focus of our reflection, our ultimate motto is to glorify God through a life of goodness and holiness in bearing abundant fruits. We live in a prevalent situation of sickness, not only the physical, but much more the emotional, moral, and spiritual. In the biblical context, in reference to today's word of God, this is the leprosy. There are always traces of woundedness, uncleanness, corroding of values, and estrangement from others, the typical leprous situation. In the light of the leper in the gospel, we can draw some lessons for our life. First, realize that we are lepers, we are unclean. This is the first thing in the process of healing. Realize that we are unworthy, undeserving, and we do not merit God's grace and mercy. That is why the leper in the gospel addresses Jesus, "If you will, you can make me clean." Then desire, nurture a genuine desire to be healed. Be genuinely motivated to get rid of the interior leprosy. Desire or motivation is the driving force toward healing, and often the lack of it obstructs the process of healing. Then, surrender. With awareness and motivation, one needs to surrender oneself totally to God. Surrender is not a sense of helplessness or a passive resigning to overwhelming situations. True surrender implies a profound trust in God and readily and eagerly approaching the Lord. Trusting is also not something propositional, which is merely believing some truths and doctrines. Trusting is more a matter of deep conviction in the power and goodness of God. Trusting involves a warm and intimate relation with the Lord. Then, bear witness. Once healed and cleaned, what next? Bear witness. In the light of the second reading from the first letter to the Corinthians, we can easily pull together some features of this bearing witness. One ingredient is all for God's glory. There is no self-seeking, no seeking self-glory. Self is not at the center, but God alone. Whatever one does, in all that one does, whether big or small, and whatever be the domain of action, whether spiritual or material, one does everything for God's glory. Another component of witness is imitate Christ. Paul confidently exhorts others to imitate him just as he imitates Jesus. Let one not blame Paul for being self-complacent or self-righteous. Rather, such a statement only shows the depth of his conviction and authenticity. One can declare so only when one is sincere about it, only when one's imitation of Christ is not debatable or dubious. Today, some gifted or highly competent followers of Christ may claim that they are imitators of Christ. Maybe. But one has to constantly check and see whether such claims are ugly heads of overbearing of the self and self-projection. The only criterion for one's imitation of Christ is the quality of life. The simplest test is whether one's life is in conformity with Jesus' own person, life, and mission. Another feature of bearing witness is no offense to anyone. If one is a healed person, one becomes highly respectful towards others. He will take utmost care that he does not become offensive to anyone. In the present times, this hurting and offensive trend is increasing. In the name of fighting for justice or rights, or standing for truth, or opposing injustice, and demanding for good governance, or promoting right values, many become so ruthlessly offensive and condemnatory. One should remember that charity is the supreme principle, and no one has a right to offend, to hurt another, whatever be the issue. The other features that can be assembled together are no self-advantage, but the advantage of many and pleasing all. In contrast to a virulent search for self-interest, self-advantage, and self-pleasing, we are called to set aside our selfish gains and pleasures. Always be focused on how to help and benefit others, how to promote the larger good. And now the direction and the directive for our life. As humans, we may be often thrown into situations of sickness and sinfulness. What is needed is not to simply lament or blame, but to work upon remedying those situations in humility, surrender, and commitment.